Welcome back everybody to the channel. It's me, Raul Alejandro Mendoza, or the Nerd Chicano. Either way, how you say it, it's all good here. And of course, we're back for another installment in Between the Frames as we continue our journey through the Godfather trilogy on 4K. Of course, on our last one, we talked about the 1972 film, The Godfather. And today, we'll be talking about none other than its sequel, The Godfather Part II. Released in 1974, it is the sequel that, to me, is even better than the original. And a lot of people have it in that high regard. I'm really excited to get into it because this is one of my favorite films of all time as well. Not quite up there as The Godfather. I think The Godfather, it's a weird thing. I think The Godfather is the more rewatchable film, and Godfather Part II is just easily the better film. But Godfather is just way more rewatchable. But of course, y'all, we're making our way through this. Next week, we will be concluding the set as we talk about The Godfather Coda, the death of Michael Corleone. And in the meantime, we are going to get to this one. So without further ado, shall we get into it? Let's go. Of course, because we don't have a fancy introduction from Criterion.com, we must look at Blu-ray.com. So, of course, its codec is still HEVC/H.265, presented in 46.80 megabits per second. And then we have, of course, the resolution is native 4K and 2160p. We have our HDR is Dolby Vision in HDR10 and HDR10. We have an aspect ratio of 1:85:1, and 1:85:1 is the original aspect ratio as well. We have a couple of audio tracks here. We have an English audio track that is Dolby True HD 5.1, 48 kilohertz 224 bit. We have an English original Dolby Digital 2.0 mono track in 224 kilobits per second. We have a Spanish, French Dolby Digital 5.1, which is in 640 kbps. And then we have a French Dolby Digital 2.0. We have a Dolby Digital 5.1, Dolby Digital 2.0. Yep. Note there is what's called Spanish is the Latin American version, and Portuguese is Brazilian Portuguese. So the subtitles are in here. We have English SDH, French, Italian, Japanese, Portuguese, French, Danish, Dutch, Norwegian, Finnish, and Swedish, like The Godfather Part 1. So, same thing, it's a 4K Ultra HD disc, and it is region free. With all that out of the way, that is our specifications for The Godfather Part 2. Now, what do I think about The Godfather Part 2? Well, I kind of already said it before in the beginning. This is one of my favorite films of all time, and easily one of those examples where the sequel is better than the original. I've seen this twice now. No, 3 times actually. This is my 3rd time. I watched it the first time when I was watching the whole trilogy. I watched it a 2nd time when we reviewed the film on the Nerdcore podcast. And now this is the 3rd time watching this in 4K. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I wish they would have put this one in the theater as well. I would have easily paid money to go see all 3 of these films in the theater, and would have, if they had the chance. But they only brought the original because of its 50th anniversary, so that's okay. That's all. It's all good. But this one wasn't presented in the theater. This is presented on this disc, and I love this film. I love the 2 different stories we have here. We have the continuation of Michael Corleone and his life, now being in Nevada as he's trying to legitimize the Corleone family. And then of course you have the story of Vito Corleone as he makes his way to America, and he basically creates his business and his life now as an Italian immigrant. Those 2 stories juxtapose each other so well, and how we're able to see the things that are so different from then but are just the same within Michael's story and his demeanor. We also have just these incredible also plots about, who is kind of conspiring against Michael and who is plotting against him. Plus you have the trial and the senator and all those storylines that are coming in, and they all just culminate into such an incredible film. This is a way more expansive film than The Godfather Part 1. It's easily a little more complex as it deals with a lot more things, but it still finds its way to have it flow well. It is longer, its pacing is a lot slower, but like as I said before on the last video, I think with these films they need to be slow. You need to be able to digest everything that is going on the screen and be able to really understand the history and the life of the Corleone family from the past and also the present. I find this film just to be so riveting. I never get tired of this one. Like the moment when Michael realizes that it was Fredo who, betrayed him, and he gives him that kiss on New Year's Eve. It just always breaks my heart. And just there's so many scenes with Fredo as well where it breaks me so much, and seeing how it is and seeing how they treat him and how he feels about his treatment within the family. Robert Duvall also just does an incredible job as well in this film, even better than the last one. And then of course, the infamous scene where Michael orders the death of his brother, and he makes that line where he will never cross from. That's the point of no return for Michael. And I love the ending where, we see the flashback scene with Connie, Sonny, Fredo, Tom Hagen, and Michael, and just how you can see that family and how Fredo was always there for his brother. It's such an incredible scene, and I think it's one of the most poetic ways to end this film. I love this movie. I never get tired of it. It's easily up there as one of my favorite films of all time. Now, let's talk about the restoration. This 4K restoration, y'all. We have a 4K transfer of this film, and just the same as before, this looks phenomenal, man. Obviously, this wasn't given the extensive work that they gave The Godfather Part 1, because they did a lot of work on that and they were able to highlight more things there. But in this one, it still looks fantastic. I mean, color grading, contrast, white, black levels, the clarity, everything looks fantastic. I mean, there are moments in this, especially in the beginning, when you have the party for what's his name? Michael's son. I can never remember Michael's son's name, even though he's a big part in the next movie that we're going to talk about. That in those scenes when you're outside in Nevada and you see, the river and not the river, the ocean. It looks fantastic. I love the way that they did that, and the way they were able to, of course, maintain the original grain and be able to make it still feel like a movie that was released in 1974, while still upscaling everything and making it feel like it's something new. It's what 4K is all about. 4K isn't just about being able to get the best quality ever. It's part of that, but it's mostly about preserving and bringing new life to films that were before not shown like that. And I think when you have films like the Godfather trilogy and you've been able to bring that out of it, it just works so well. And this is another instance where the film works so well to be able to show the true nature of what 4K UHD can bring to the table. And it looks fantastic, and there's nothing else I can really say about that. Now, the audio track. The audio track isn't amazing, because this is an Atmos. This is true. This is Dolby Digital. It sounds good. Don't get me wrong. It's not an Atmos track, and like I've said before, not every movie needs an Atmos track, and not every movie is gonna get an Atmos track. But they did do a really good job of making sure that they cleaned up the audio and still presented it in its original, format, where it feels like a movie that was made in 1974, as I stressed before. This sounds good. The dialogue isn't too loud or too low. You can still hear really well. The music from Nino Rota sounds amazing. It's good audio. They did a good job. It's nothing amazing that I can sit here and say yo, this surround sound was amazing. It's good surround sound and a good audio track. It's not an Atmos track, and that's fine. But overall, I think that the audio track was well made, and they did a really good job at bringing new life to it. And it's definitely one of my one of my favorite tracks on 4K UHD discs, especially, you know, some of these old other releases that are coming out where, you know, they don't do a lot of extensive work on those audio tracks. But in this one, you can tell they did clean it up, and they were still able to make sure that they preserved that original feeling of the old audio track. I also, you know, went switch back and forth between the original and the new audio track, and you can tell that there's a major difference in what they did to that work. So this is a good audio track, and I pretty much enjoyed it. Now, to keep up to date with me with all the things I do on social media, make sure you check me out on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Serialized at The Nerdy Chicano. I'm also on YouTube here, of course, because you're watching me, right? That's kind of dumb that I just said that. But I'm going to remind you all to subscribe and to leave a like on this video and turn on that notification bell, because you don't want to miss a single piece of content that's coming your way on this channel. I also want to let you guys know that my Patreon page is up. If you want to get early access to this video and a lot of other videos like the Cinema Condition, my podcast that I run on this channel here, or other reviews of 4K discs and movies that I watch, you want to go to patreon.com/nerdychicano. They already know what set is next. You know, you guys got to wait until next week to see the next video to see what set is next. But if you're on Patreon, you've already seen it. You've already seen the next video, which is the death of Michael Corleone. With that said, y'all, go and visit Patreon and make sure you keep up to date with all the things that I do on the Nerdcore by going to nerdcore.com and listening to our podcasts on anywhere the podcast can be found. And of course, my friends, on the next video, we're going to be talking about The Godfather Coda, the death of Michael Corleone, as we look at the 4K disc, and conclude our journey through the Godfather trilogy on 4K. And without further ado, to my wonderful cinephiles and renowned scholars, celebrate the love of cinema today, tomorrow, and every day after. I'll catch you all on the next one. See you guys.